Professor Nadasan, sir.
Yes, morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yes.
Yes.
Good morning to everybody. At the outset, this is the second day session. Professor P. Natarajan, former professor and head, the Department of Commerce, Pondicherry University, is going to deliver this session. And for the Department of Corporate Secretaryship and coordinator of this AICT Atal online FD program, welcome the Professor P. Natarajan and office committee members of this department and participants from this across the country. I welcome you all this second day online traffic development program. Now I invite Professor Moraji to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, coordinator sir. Very fine. Good morning to one and all gathered in this platform. Let's start the program with invocation followed by Vallal Valtu. May I request the organizer to play the video?
Silent prayer for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Dear participants and guests of honor, Professor P. Natarajan sir, very good morning to you all. Today is a very important day. Today is the 6th anniversary of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So let us observe another 2 minutes silence to pay our heartful homage to the President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, former President Dr. APJ. Let us observe 2 minutes silence and pay our homage. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Honorable Guest of Honor, Professor P. Natarajan sir, respected faculty members of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, learned participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very fine good morning to you all. At the outset, on behalf of the university and on my own behalf, I welcome you all for this second day program in this FDP. Today, our resource person, Professor P. Natarajan sir, is here with us to talk about corporate restructuring synergies in public sector banks. Dear participants, we feel pride and privileged to have Professor P. Natarajan, who is our former colleague of Alagappa University and who is an alumnus of Alagappa University, presently working as professor in Pondicherry University since 2006. Dear participants, Professor P. Natarajan is well experienced researcher. He has guided 24 PhD candidates and 60 MPhil scholars. Besides his guidance, he has published 128 research papers and conducted 2 projects, which is really amazing. Professor P. Natarajan has served as UGC SAP DRS coordinator in the Department of Commerce over a period of 6 years and PhD Guideship Recognition Committee member, chairman in Pondicherry University. And is also a chairman in Board of Studies. He is serving as an examiner for UPSC Civil Service Examination, NAC Peer Team member, member coordinator, online study material review committee member for the commerce domain in UGC, and also a governing body member for 2 colleges affiliated to Pondicherry University. His academic outreach is visible by his membership in various special committees, Academic Performance Committee, Advisory Committee, Academic Staff College, Library Committee, and so on. The list goes on, right? But yet, he has assumed many examination-related responsibilities. BOE for PhD thesis evaluation of different universities. Member Board of Examinations of Alagappa University, Annamalai University, Puducherry University, Bharatiyar University. In short, all universities in India. Dear participants, our guest Professor P. Natarajan has edited 4 books with co-authors and written 31 course materials at PG level for different universities. He has attended 22 international conferences and 54 national conferences. Presently, he is serving as the professor in Commerce, School of Management, Pondicherry University. So on behalf of the participants and on behalf of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, I extend a red carpet welcome to Professor P. Natarajan.
Yes, good morning, Dr. Moraj, for your sweet words.
Yes, sir. And before I hand over the session to Professor P. Natarajan, sir, I wish to convey my thought on corporate restructuring strategy. Well, dear participants, corporate form of organization is the gift of British legacy. Corporates, they gave a structured corporates, but now we are giving a restructured corporate to the world. That is the present. When I asked my student why banks are going for restructuring, one of the students in the last bench replied, to mitigate the losses created by the businessman. Top businessman has created a loss to the bank to the tune of 6 lakhs crores. Is it for that purpose banks are consolidated, or to develop the poor people to the entrepreneurs, right? So in my own native place, I can see hundreds and hundreds of people as entrepreneurs of MSMEs. So why there is a need for consolidation of banks? And to conclude my remarks, I can say whole number is always better than pieces. So with this thought, may I invite Professor P. Natarajan to talk on the topic corporate restructuring synergies in public sector banks. Over to you, sir. Have a nice time. Thank you.
Good morning, one and all. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to take part in this 5-day FDP organized by the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, Alagappa University, correctly. The respected VC committee members, Dr. Swaminathan, Dr. Gurumurthy, and my beloved friend, the Registrar Sekhar, and then the workshop FDP coordinator, Dr. Vedirajan, Professor Moraj, and Ganesamurthy, Madhiraj, and other colleagues who are in the organizing team, and above all, the delegates who are taking part in the FDP. Good morning, one and all. So first of all, I congratulate the Department of Corporate Secretaryship for organizing this wonderful program under the banner of AICTE Training and Learning Online Faculty Development Program, and by taking up a very vibrant theme called corporate restructuring in public sector banks in India present scenario. So for which I first of all I congratulate my hearty felicitation and greetings to the Department of Corporate Secretaryship for choosing a very novel theme to be discussed in a threadbare manner. That too among the very educated and very enriched delegates who have come all over India to take part in this FDP. So my salute to all the organizing committee members for nicely conceiving the idea and executing it in a wonderful manner. And so really it is a kind of as a coordination, it's a kind of coincidence that today is the Abdul Kalam's day. So with the by remembering his great ideals, let us start a discussion on the topic corporate restructuring public sector banks in India present scenario. Just a minute, I will share my slide and then come. Are you able to see the screen? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You're able to see the screen? Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Professor. Yes, Professor.
And as I said, first the department has considering a very right theme and implementing it in a very effective manner by means of identifying 14 different resource persons, the galaxy of experts deliberate on this topic, corporate restructuring of public sector banks. So really it's a wonderful initiative, and this topic has a lot of academic relevance and research exposure. It has a lot of the research issues in that, and definitely the deliberation on these 5 days will help a lot to enlighten the various aspects of restructuring and facilitate the young researcher as well as the faculty members to have an idea on the restructuring. Okay, fine. So perhaps in the last 24 hours, in the first day session, you might have heard about discussion about restructuring and corporate restructuring. So thus I have framed my discussion in such a way that, so to give you a prelude about corporate restructuring, and then the restructuring banks, and then public sector banks. So I would like to highlight only the mega mergers that has happened in the recent past in the public sector bank. So that we will have a detailed deliberation on that. So before getting into anything, definitely detailed understanding of the background is very, very important. And that's why as a student of commerce and management, or as a researcher, active researcher, we have to have an in-depth understanding on the conceptual aspect of it, which in turn helps a lot to probe into the concept very deeply and identify the key issues which can be probably further in the form of a research or in the form of preparing a research articles. So like that. So with that intention, I would like to give you a prelude. Okay. Friends, all of you may be knowing very well that nowadays every business organization, they wanted to become big. Okay, what's the secret behind it? Why business units wanted to become big? Why they want to become big? Hello? Why the business establishment wanted to become big?
In order to get profits.
In order to get profit. So is it not possible in a small business? Is it not possible to get a business? Is it a small business?
To get the advantage of synergy.
So the thing is,
For the strategic advantage.
So
the thing is,
the market share.
so being a big business unit, so they want to become powerful. So there is a concept, big is powerful. So that is a mantra among the corporate world, and that's why the corporates are very big, very particular in becoming a bigger organization. Right now, when you say corporate entity, that itself is a bigger entity among the other forms of ownership. No? When you take up a partnership, proprietorship, and the individual family, when comparing cooperative forms, among all forms of ownership of organization, corporates are generally a giant size of organization, and that's why we are calling it as a joint stock companies. And again, even becoming a corporate company, they wanted to become still bigger and want to become an industry leader, wants to become an industry leader, for which in the present day context, they are acting in a very strategic manner with which they would like to have edge over others. They would like to have edge over others by being big. So big is powerful. That is the mantra. Again, I am not recommending that this mantra will hold good at all occasions. Okay, some 20 years back, we thought that business establishments had an idea that we want to start a small business, run it efficiently, make it profitable, and thereby we can thrive successfully. We can sustain well. So that was the ideology. So there they said that small, why you are doing small business? Why don't you think of big? In that case, they said that small is beautiful. So that's how the concept of setting up of a small business establishment has come up. And the SBM, again, small business management, is also the order of the day. Again, country like India, it will hold good in all possible ways. But despite that, when taking into account the global scenario, so we have to encourage the corporate sector. And again, in order to, while going corporatizing things, we have to see that how efficiently and effectively we can run the corporate bodies. So in that occasion, naturally we have to take into account the strategic perspective of the corporate body. And in that, definitely nobody will refute or avoid or eliminate the concept of McKinsey's 7S framework. So when we say 7S framework, so when we say an organization, it is being structured with several elements. It is being structured with several elements, popularly called as a 7S framework, and the system, people, and resources. So some system, again, 7 concepts are there. All the concepts should be properly linked and structured. So yes, I have structured it in such a way in one occasion or at the time of setting of the business. Will it hold good forever? No, because we are living in the business establishments are living in a dynamic environment. So due to business dynamic, the structure, what is being designed once, it will not hold good at all time. That's why we have to look into the current situation and see that how effectively we can restructure our organization so as to suit to the current circumstances and how to thrive in that successfully. So for which the restructuring practices is very much essential. That is what is technically called as corporate restructuring, which means any change in the business capacity and capital structure achieved through the inorganic process. So when you say the restructuring, it can be done in 2 ways. One is called organic restructuring, and another one is called inorganic restructuring. What is organic? What is organic restructuring? Have you heard the word organic restructuring? Have you heard the word organic restructuring?
Internal reconstruction.
Yeah, good. Ganesh, it's good. Organic restructuring is internal reconstructing. Will it be possible at all times? Will it be possible at all times?
No, sir. Generally, it happens when the market, your shares prices are overpriced sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Internal restructuring is possible, and for which we have to make a thorough introspection as a corporate body. We have to make a thorough introspection and see that how we can alter the internal structure of the organization. As I said, at all times you keep in mind that 7S framework. 7S framework as suggested by McKinsey. Okay. And accordingly, they would have heard about the matrix also, the growth, market share and the growth matrix. You would have heard about BCG matrix, Boston Consultancy Group matrix. Having taken up on all these things, this restructuring process is taking place in the corporate world in the recent past, and especially in the banking arena. This restructuring has been taken up very seriously in the recent past. Restructuring is not a new concept, no, and it has been discussed since the nationalization of banks. Since the nationalization of banks, so it's not a new phenomenon. But now the need for restructuring is very much emphasized, and we would like to have a kind of the three-structure banking system as it is visualized by the Narasimham Committee. You might have heard that. The Narasimham Committee is one of the very effective committee which suggested a lot of concrete suggestions. But whether all those suggestions are incorporated or not, majority of these committee suggestion have been implemented. And one among the suggestion is their restructuring, with respect to restructuring. And there he suggested about three things, three levels. One is the top layer banks. It may be of 3 or 4 in number. So which has the global presence, which should have a kind of global presence. And then the national bank or public sector bank, and then that regional level bank. Hello? Hello. So the restructuring I said about organic and inorganic, and organic refers to the internal restructuring, and whenever we say internal restructuring, as accounting students, corporate accounting students, many of you might have heard, or while studying corporate accounting subject, you might have heard that organic restructuring can be done in the form of capital alteration. Capital alteration, that is what is called internal reconstruction in the corporate accounting. But many times the external reconstruction, that is so-called inorganic restructuring will be very, very helpful and ideal, and thereby we will be able to grow well, and we can make our business really in a bigger sense. So when we, as I said earlier, when we do things in a bigger, we will be getting scaling advantage. Whenever we do a kind of bigger size of business, we will be able to get a kind of large scale activity, and which in turn gives you cost advantage. So that is the purpose of being big. When we say big, our scale of operation will become wider. When our scale of operation is wider, we may be able to take up more size of business activities, and our business size or volume will be increasing. When volume increasing, automatically it contributes to revenue. When it contributes to revenue, we will have edge over others. And at the same time, when we take up a higher size or heavy size, automatically cost will come down, and thereby the company will be getting competitive cost advantage. With which the companies may be able to sustain in the competitive business environment. That is the purpose of external restructuring. What is it called? Inorganic restructuring. The inorganic restructuring, a kind of synergy will arise. Because we are moving with the other entities, and we are joining, we are collaborating in the form of alliance, in the form of amalgamation, in the form of merger, in the form of acquisition. So many ways we are joining with other companies, and thereby we would try to bring up a synergy. So that is what is called the inorganic and the external reconstruction, and thereby we will be able to perform very strategically, which in turn helps a lot for the companies in general and banking company in particular to thrive in a competitive environment. So for which a kind of strategic focus is required. Again, when you say, ladies and gentlemen, when you say strategic focus, so what is the need for strategy? What is the strategy first of all? What is strategy? What is the strategy? Simple meaning, simple line. What is a strategy?
Planning.
Action plan to achieve goal.
Yeah, an action a company takes to attain a superior performance. An action a company takes to attain a superior performance. Okay. So what would be the action to be taken by a company for attaining a superior performance can be considered as a strategy. Okay. So, and when you say strategy with respect to time span, it relates with the long-term goals. Okay. So that's why strategic perspective refers the long-term vision. And when you say the long-term perspective or long-term vision, and automatically it relates with the vision, mission of the enterprises. So normally in the current business environment, many business units are coming up just like a mushroom. They don't have the stability, and they are unable to survive for a long time, and they will be like a water bubble. Okay. So that's why their existence may not be possible relatively for a longer time, and that's how they are very particular in ensuring stability and strength, for which they have to conceive a right vision and chalk out very good missions, and then set goals and work for achieving it. Thereby the company can withstand all challenges, and with which they will be able to thrive well. Even in the pandemic, in this current situation, last 18 months, 20 months, every industry is facing a lot of problem, individuals are facing problem, whole economy is facing problem. So there, every one of us are very particular in in getting into the new normal situation. So we are very anxiously we're expecting the new normal. No? So for which, first of all, the first and foremost thing what is required is we have to survive and thrive. We have to survive and thrive. So for which the institutions are evolving strategies for successfully mitigating the situation and thrive. No? So survive and thrive is the first stage, and then only we will think about development, and then only we will talk about growth. Okay. So this is how during certain uncertainties also we have to think strategically and try to show our superior performance. Thereby we will be able to thrive. Fine. So I said that there are two types of restructuring. One is organic and another one is inorganic. Organic is good, and at all times it may not give advantages. The quantum of synergy from the organic structuring is relatively less compared to inorganic. That's why inorganic structuring is widely recognized. Right. Then another dimension is when you say restructuring, there are two types of restructuring, and operational restructuring, financial restructuring. No? So many times we people are very particular about the financial restructuring only. So forgetting that operational restructuring, the mix of both is very much essential. Then only the real restructuring will work out in the real sense. Otherwise, restructuring will become utter failure. Okay. So we are going to discuss some other slides, the ensuing slides. There, why some companies are successful, why some companies are fail when they are restructuring their operations. Okay. So it is because of the imbalance of these two dimensions of structuring, what is called operational structuring and financial restructuring. So as a student, as a faculty, young faculty or researcher, so we have, whenever we think about, even I can study about one M&A situation, one M&A situation, and while studying that in depth, I have to take into account on both sides. I have to take into account the operational side as well as financial side. So many a time, even when I ask the first question, so many of you, why business units wanted to become big? So you said the profit making. Okay. So profit making alone is not the only criteria. Okay. There are many things, many factors, many other criteria are also there. That's why the word, the title, no, instead of talking about capital restructuring, the conference coordinators or the team has put it as a restructuring, corporate restructuring. Okay. When you say corporate restructuring, definitely we have to discuss about both. That is operational restructuring and financial restructuring. Again, in line with that, they have identified 14 different topics and fixed 14 resource persons, and that's how they have designed the 5-day program along with one inaugural and valedictory. Okay. So the basic is this one, operational and financial. Okay, when you say the operational restructuring, it is the process of increasing the economic viability of an underlying business model. So example includes the merger, then the sale of divisions, abandonment of product lines, cost-cutting measures such as closing down of unprofitable facilities, etc. No? So this is even downsizing. You might have heard about the word downsizing the present contest among the IT units, and because they have scaled up very much, but now the scale is not compatible. So they wanted to reduce the size, for which they are going for downsizing and freezing and other things. So this is how they are trying to introduce a lot of ways and means for operational restructuring, with which they are designing, or they are trying to design apt size, right size. No. So is it possible to, there is a saying, many of you might have heard, no one size is, fill the blank, fill up the blank. No one size is, fit for all. Okay, no one size is fit for all. Okay, while establishing a company, I have designed a structure some 10 years ago. So that over a period of time, over the period of time, definitely the environmental forces are changing. So naturally, I have to look into the restructuring. So then only I can identify a compatible size. Compatible, that is the size which will coexist. The size which will coexist in the present circumstances. Okay. So that is what is called compatible. No, so while looking into the organization, while designing the organization, we have to look into the compatibility. Compatibility is one of the important character of an organization. And especially in the case of corporate enterprises, so the compatibility they have to ensure once in a while. And when compatibility is not ensured, definitely one way or other, or one or other reason, business will fail. Our company may not be in a position to sustain. So we have to close down. So no one size is fit for all. That concept you have to understand, and accordingly restructuring should be done. Okay. Because while structuring, we have taken into account one particular level of capacity at which we would like to function. But now over a period of time, that level of operation will change. When the level of operation changes, automatically we have to suitably change other aspects also. We have to suitably change other aspects also. That's why restructuring is very much essential. And in that perspective, the operational restructuring is very much essential. And then, okay, whatever be the restructuring initiative taken up by the company, including a banking company. Okay. So ultimately, it is for some purpose. Okay. Ultimately, what will be the result and gain out of it? So for which, again, financial restructuring is also very much important. And that financial restructuring really create a lot of visible effect in the form of synergy. And the corporate financial restructuring involves the restructuring of assets and liabilities of the corporations, including their debt to equity structure, in line with the cash flow needs to promote efficiency, support growth, maximize the value of shareholders, creditors and stakeholders, etc. And this is how the financial restructuring, when financial restructuring is done effectively, the company may be able to ensure the leverage. You might have heard about the concept of leverage, financial leverage. The financial leverage can be done very effectively in the form of debt restructuring. And again, dividend policy and other so many financial metrics are there with which the restructuring implications can be identified, and with which we could able to identify the synergy. So while looking at the synergy, we can identify generally, we can see the impact on the MPS, market price per share, or book to price, BP ratio. BP ratio means book value, market price divided by book value ratio, and the EPS. So all such parameters helps a lot to see whether the restructuring, financial restructuring is really beneficial or not, whether it gives a synergical effect in the form of enhancement in the value of the customers. Such thing can be done by means of calculating synergy. Okay, so this is about the two types. One is operating and financial restructuring. Okay, and again, when I say the restructuring, there are reasons, variable reasons. And here I have mentioned a few reasons. One is the induces higher earnings, leverage core competencies, as I said, leverage core competencies. So I hope all of you may be knowing the word competency. Competency, what's the meaning? It is a combination of, or it encompasses three things. Competency encompasses three things. One is knowledge, skill, and values. Okay. So while going for doing anything in the corporate sector, okay, not necessarily corporate sector, for all business entities, and especially corporate sector I'm talking. Why? Because they are doing a bigger size, and whatever they do, if at all it is being when it provides the prospective results, it is good. But if it is on some restricted line, it will harm the society and it will harm the economy ultimately, and the economy will be collapsed. That also we have seen. We have seen in the financial crisis which took place in US in 2008. That started as a financial crisis, and it becomes an economic crisis and a global economic crisis. Still we are facing many countries are still facing the hit of the problem because of the contagion effect. And so why I'm telling means, whenever we do bigger, we may get a lot of benefits. At the same time, if any untoward thing happens, we will be getting a serious blow. We will be getting a severe blow. We will not be in a position to come back. So coming back will become really questionable. So that amount of risk should also we should take when we are thinking about this kind of restructuring, especially the merger and amalgamation and all. They can grow bigger. When they are becoming a bigger, while with anticipation of getting maximum value, maximizing the values of the shareholders and the stakeholders, we have to see the risk perspective also, the risk perspective of it. When the risks, the contemplated risks are unable to manage, definitely the business will be in doldrum, company will be in doldrum, and it will come across a lot of failures. So generally, when we come across a restructuring, the reasons for higher earnings, then leverage core competence. I said, when you say please, friends, don't forget that. That's why I am giving more emphasis to competency rather than knowledge, rather than intelligence. Okay. So mere intelligence alone is not enough, and we have to have the combination of the three things: knowledge, skills, and values. So then only you are called you have competency. If you have competency, you are a competent person. When you are a competent person, you can compete. Okay, so this is applicable for individuals, institution, and government. So while going for restructuring, the businesses, the companies, they have to take into account in a holistic perspective, for which they have to think of liberating the core competencies in all perspective. Thereby, it leads to a realistic. It will ensure the stability of the organization. So fundamentals will be very strong, and thereby the restructuring will be fruitful. Okay. So core competency is another reason. Then divestiture and make business alliances. Then ensure clarity in vision, strategy, and structure. Then provide proactive leadership, empowerment of employees, re-engineering process, etc. Okay. So these are all some of the reasons, widely acclaimed reasons for the corporate structure. Okay, when we say methods of corporate restructuring, mainly the merger. Many of us may be knowing that the merger of two or more firms, the demerger of a firm, an acquisition of a firm by another firm, sell-off, then formation of joint venture, etc. These are all various methods of corporate restructuring. Okay, so again, yesterday you might have heard the very purpose of the widely prevailing restructuring process is merger and acquisition, and this merger and acquisition is taking place mainly for the purpose of ensuring maximum possible synergy, and for which you might be knowing the situation, the concept. That kind of concept of the merger is merger of equals. Merger of equals gives the maximum synergy. And when you say acquisition, another model of restructuring, there what's happening is the bigger fish fries the willing smaller fish, and thereby the smaller fish can also thrive. But normally, what is taking place in the of merger? A strong company trying to acquire the weak company. Okay. And the one strong company and one weak company, they join together and they amalgamate, or they do collaborations and work, or they have strategic alliance and work. So this is how joining. While doing so, while undertaking this kind of restructuring, the enterprises should take into account with whom they are joining, and they have to do a SWOT analysis of the company or partner with whom we are joining or collaborating in a threadbare manner. I would like to give you an example. Friends, all of you may be knowing a sports event called a three-legged race. Do you know three-legged race?
Okay.
Three-legged race.
Okay.
Hello. Do you know the three-legged race? Huh?
Because.
What?
Yes, sir.
When it will have three? No. So perhaps many of you might have experienced in schools also. Three-legged race means two persons are called, and their one person's left leg, another person's right legs are tied, and they are asked to go for 100 meters or 200 meters. Have you seen that? Have you seen that event?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
See, it's really very enjoyable, very lovely. So this is how many times we can learn these concepts through our lifestyle actions. Three-legged race. Suppose you have one bulky fellow and one pruny fellow. They join together. Okay, what will happen? Whether that event will be enjoyable for them?
No, sir.
Yeah, it is enjoyable for us because we are audience. We can enjoy. And whereas as a member, that thin fellow will be suffering like anything, because we have a perception that a thin fellow may go fast than the bulky fellow. That is the assumption. Or sometimes again this concept, this hypothesis is also not good. They be big, but they may have more endurance, and that's why they can go faster than the thin fellow. That is also there. So how to ensure what is the reality? What is the exact answer for that? Whether always the big fellows or bulky fellows are not able to run and the thin fellows are able to run fastly? Okay, that is sometimes, many times it acts as a myth. This myth can also be broken by in few occasions, and then only we could understand. Yes, in addition, apart from the size, we have to see the endurance. There is another factor called endurance. That is a kind of willpower. A thin person may be able to run well, but he may not have endurance. But whereas a bulky person, normally he may not be in a position to run fast, but he is having strong endurance, which create a drive in him, and thereby he may be able to run fast. So this kind of analysis, this three-legged race analysis, we have to do when we think about merger. When you think about merger is like that only. Okay. So again, now when we have a discussion on mega big merger, mega bank merger. Okay. So there also the government of India, again, while going for announcing this mega merger, they said that strong banker, the weak banks will be merged with strong bank. So God only say them. Okay, at all times, the bigger banks cannot be a superior stronger banker at all times. Or at all times, the strong banker will not be a weaker one after merger, or both of them will equip at the same level. So it all depends upon the synergical effect what is taking place in the merger. Okay. Otherwise, even there are occasions, even the strong banker after merger it becomes weaker. It may not be in a position to sustain. That is also the case. No, but while doing any initiative, we have to think positively. That is also another lesson for us. No? So we have to think positively and take it up. While doing so, what I am trying to tell you is, when we go for this kind of real restructuring, we have to ensure the consensus among the entities. Consensus among the entities who are joining together. Consensus. What is consensus? What is consensus?
Same thing in the same sense.
Agreeing on certain
Consensus ad idem.
Consensus ad idem. No, think in the same wavelength. No, so what is called the identity of mind. What is called the identity of mind? In case of restructuring, especially merger and acquisition, that identity of mind is very much required among the entities. No, in case of two or more companies joined together, all the two or more companies, they have to think in the right perspective and see that their purpose is ultimately to make synergy. Okay. So company X, company Y. Company Y is a weaker company or target company. The company X is a acquiring company. No? So when the X acquires Y always wanted to ensure that their EPS should not come down. So that is their logic. And this fellow, while in the case of a realistic merger, they wanted to make a gain out of it, and that's why they try to fix that lower value on consideration, and thereby they try to make profit out of it. But sometimes this target firm, they are very stronger, and they have really some potentials. And in such circumstances, they will bargain with the strong bank and see that after merger, our EPS should not come down below this level. Like that, they will argue, and again they will arrive at consensus and come to an understanding and enter into merger. So thereby it works out. So this synergy, we are again different terms and conditions they will fix and try to find out the synergy. And when the synergy is acceptable, they will accept. So this is how a deal will strike. Deal among the 2 or 3 units will be striking based on the synergy. Okay. So the compatibility, the identity of mind, consensus item is very much essential. So while doing so, the entities must have a kind of thorough understanding on the operational side as well as the financial restructuring, and they have to work for creating a situation what is called a win-win situation. What is called a win-win situation? Then only that our deal will be smoothened. It is not for grabbing the weak units by the stronger units. So that's why there also a kind of the supporting, a compassion is also required, and with which, with the intention of scaling up the business in the real sense, at the same time, not making the employees of the target companies suffocating. So we have to go undergo this restructuring. Then only the restructuring will hold good. Restructuring will hold good. Again, like a marriage contract. Okay, like a marriage contract. No, when we enter into the marriage contract, definitely the consensus is very much essential. Then only it will survive. Similarly, in case of merger, that such consensus are very much essential. Then only it will lead to the concept of 1 + 1 is equal to. Normally, the rationale behind a merger and acquisition, no, this 1 + 1 lead to the aim. The expectation is like this. That's why I'm making as the rationale. Rationale behind the M&A is 1 + 1 is equal to.
So
Hello.
3 because it's a synergistic.
Yeah, 3. Will it take place at all time? Eventually they are thinking, but will it take place at all time?
Not necessary, sir.
Not necessarily.
Not possible, sir, all the time.
Yeah, it depends on the capability. It depends on the capability with which the unit, the joint units, merged companies are facing the environmental forces. That's why they have to consistently work. They have to consistently work that too in the initial stages. Many a time, out of the promotional effect or media effect and all, in the short run or at the time of announcement of merger, the company's share price may be high, but after some time, so after 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, definitely the market price will come down. Okay, so that's why while going for this kind of restructuring, especially M&A, we have to do even study analysis. We have to do even study analysis to see the synergy. So what about the short-term synergy? What about the long-term synergy? Will it be a significant difference? No. If it is whether that difference is unidirectional or bidirectional, so like that we have to do analysis with respect to the synergical effect. And for which even study analysis helps a lot. Even study analysis helps a lot. So there we have to make two types of analysis, what is called short-run analysis and long-run analysis. Short-run analysis and long-run analysis, because the restructuring is relatively a long-term decision-making. No? Corporate restructuring cannot be taken up at a regular intervals. Then and there. So it has to be taken once in a while. That's why it has a long-term span. It has a corporate restructuring is not a routine activity. No, it is one of the long-term course of operation. And such a long-term course of operation should be taken up very seriously after analyzing in a threadbare manner the various environmental factors and other things. And at the same time, the merged firms, they have to keen on augmenting their potentials in a full scale. Then only they will be able to make synergy in the real sense. And that they can continue the synergy also. So when they continue with the synergy, definitely it will make them to grow in a realistic way. Then only this kind of merger and acquisition will be successful. Okay. So the rationale is 1 + 1 = 3. And here the key principle behind the buying a company is creating a shareholder value over and above. And in the present day context, again, shareholder value alone is not the perspective. We have to have a ideology of stakeholders management. Stakeholders management is very much essential. When you say stakeholders management, stakeholders' interests are of conflicting nature. Okay, while going for this kind of complex restructuring strategy, in the present day context, companies who are involved in the process, they have to keep in mind the stakeholders management perspective. Stakeholders management perspective, no, not only by thinking the shareholders value maximization. Okay, shareholder value maximization alone is not a criteria in the present day context. So stakeholders perspective. When you say stakeholders interests are of conflicting in nature. In such circumstances, the companies who are joining together, they have to do proper balancing of stakeholders' interests. Proper balancing of stakeholders' interests. Then only the merger deal will survive for a long time. Otherwise, a portion of stakeholders are not happy with this. Automatically, due to one or other reason, the deal will be breached. The deal will be breached and automatically it will be failed, and that's how the restructuring may not be successful. Yeah, that is also there. So we have to look into the interest of the stakeholders for whom we are working. Right. See, what is mentioned here? Hello? What is mentioned here?
Ways of merger.
Yeah, ways of merger. Ways of merger. Here I am telling. So the first part is ways of merger, and this is acquisition. Okay. So ways of merger. So purchase of assets by exchanging shares for assets. By exchanging shares for assets. And here by purchase of common shares. Here by exchanging shares of shares for other shares. This is how virtually, practically speaking, the M&A is taking place. Okay. While working on problem, because we have 6 different perspectives of corporate restructuring. One perspective is accounting perspective. From the accounting perspective, when you arrive at deal price, that settlement can be made in this way: by purchase of asset, by exchanging shares for shares, by purchase of common shares, by exchanging the shares for shares, like that. So this is how the merger takes place in a practical way. Manner. And when you come to acquisition, the acquisition here, again in the first slide itself, I said that a big fish fries, building smaller. So that is the cartoon here. This is a big fish, and they are trying to swallow this one And again, while swallow, they may not eat and digest. Okay, so they will swallow something. They can safely protect it also, and then leave it. So that kind of situation, that way synergy will take place. Here, synergy related acquisition or the five different synergies. When we say synergy, synergy can be identified in 5 different forms. One is economies of scale. As I said earlier, why business unit corporates wanted to do bigger size of business? So thereby they would like to get the leadership, the cost leadership, or market leadership or industry leadership. So they have to acquire power. Okay. So economies of scale could be done or could be realized in the form of cost advantage, minimum cost. When minimum cost is there, definitely we may be able to enhance the market share. But market share is increasing and automatically profitability will come. So that is economies of scale. Even in the banking perspective, when you see when the banks are doing in a bigger size, and automatically they can make use of the resources, that is especially infrastructure resources, especially technology input and R&D facilities. They can make use of in a common manner, and thereby they can make a lot of innovations. They can do wide variety of services, which in turn minimizes the cost of operation, and thereby when cost of operation is very less, automatically the more services the bank can render, and with which their revenue will be increasing, then thereby they may be able to make out surplus, excess of income over expenditure. Normally, the banks are undertaking fund-based activities and fee-based activities. And the fee-based activities are increasing in the present day context. And by means of doing more services, the bank can think of increasing their spread as well as non-spread income. Spread. I hope all of you may be knowing spread. What is spread in the banking? The banking context, what is spread?
Difference between ask price and the bid price is called spread.
I am asking
Bank's profit.
from the banking perspective. From
Bank's
the bank.
profit.
Pardon. Spread.
Spread is a profit of bank. In context of loan, it is.
No. It is again in the income of the bank may be broadly classified into 2.
Yes.
One is called interest income, another one is called non-interest income. Interest income, non-interest income. Similarly, expenditure, interest expenditure, non-interest expenditure. Like that.
Yes.
We can broadly classify them into 2. Okay. So the difference between the interest income and interest expenditure, that is called spread. When the interest income, the difference between interest income and interest expenditure is positive, we can call it a spread. When it is negative, the interest income, the difference between the interest income and the interest expenditure. No, when II is greater than IE, interest expenditure, it is called a spread. When reverse is the case, when interest income is less than interest expenditure, II is less than interest expenditure, IE. So in that case, it is called a It is called burden, BURDEN. No, so along with working out conventional accounting ratios, we have to go for this kind of new measures also, new metrics, spread ratio, burden ratio. No, like that. When we do that, we may be able to precisely measure the performance. That is what we are using the word efficacy. Efficacy means efficiency to be measured in a precise manner. So that can be done in the banking industry very effectively. Even we can make use of hundreds of ratios like that, and with which we can measure the performance of the banks at any level of operation. Okay, so synergy, economics of scale. So for which I am telling you an example. Say for example, transfer of money, transfer of fund. Now, how do you feel about the cost of transfer of fund? How do you feel about cost of transfer of fund in a bank today and 20 years before? Is it increasing or declining?
So it's declining. It's not
Declining.
yeah.
Okay. Why? So that is called a cost per transaction. In the banking industry, cost per transaction has come down. Cost per transaction has come down very significantly in the present day context because of scaling, of operation, because of the use of ICT. The cost per transaction has come down very significantly, which in turn ensures the viability of the bank. Okay, so when it is the case, why bank fails? When bank fail means there are something else also. So that also we have to look into while going for. That's why I said operational restructuring, and financial restructuring. By means of measuring by using the metrics of financial restructuring, we can identify the lapses of operational restructuring. Okay, lapses in operational restructuring, and vice versa will also happen. Okay, so this is how frequently or then and there we have to measure the synergy and make necessary changes. Thereby, the restructuring process will be pakka. So first one, economies of scale, then staff reduction, then acquiring technology, and then improved market research and industry visibility, taxation. So taxation perspective. So from this perspective, synergy will occur. And again, I am telling you in a very simple way, or for everything, lot of metrics we have to develop. Metrics mean measures. We have to develop and find out. So for example, you may be knowing a kind of framework, international framework for measuring the performance of banks. No. What is it? Popular model for measuring the performance of banks. Camel, very good.
Camel model.
Camels. Yes, also coming now. Okay, what is yes? Camels. So camel model. All of you may be knowing about camel model. Yes, letter S is also included now. It is called camels. C for capital adequacy. A for asset quality, M for management efficiency, E for earning ability, and L for liquidity, and S for sensitivity to risk. Though this is what is called the camel models. So in that, when you say C, first letter C, capital adequacy, there again 4 or 5 metrics are there. Core ratio, weighted core ratio, like that. Similarly, when you say second one, asset quality, again, asset quality, there are metrics. So likewise, for every letter in the word camel, we have different type of measures or metrics with which we can measure the performance of the banks in the real sense. That also we have to do during the pre-restructuring process and the post-restructuring also. Because in the later slide I am going to tell you about how to find out the synergy. By even we can apply the camel model to find out the synergy in the pre-merger period and post-merger period among banks. Among public sector banks. Even you can take one merger only and see it's a performance change. So economies of scale, staff reduction. Many times from the employee perspective, human perspective, whether they agree with the restructuring at all time or instantly, when there is an announcement by government with respect to public sector bank, immediately the bankers association may protest. They are protesting because of this merger consolidation may reduces the employment opportunity, may reduces the promotional opportunity. So in the human side, human perspective, it is not good. So like that, there may be a resistance, but such resistance should also be duly convinced and see that yes, we will protect the interests of the employees. So that organization. So without convincing the human side of the organization, any kind of deal will not be successful. That also you have to understand. Again, in restructuring, that is an M&A process, we can do exclusive research on the human side also, human side of the organization. Okay. So before the merger, what was the attitude of the employees of both the banks? After the merger, what is the attitude of the employees of the bank? How the weak bank employees are able to cope up with the strong bank employees. So like this kind of study we can do, and thereby we can bring out a lot of complicated details into limelight, and accordingly we can suggest the organization, we can suggest the management of the bank to take up suitable policy, HR policy, and thereby the human side of the organization will be motivated, psychologically motivated, with which, as I said, the synergy will take place in a more effective manner. So economies of scale, staff reduction, acquiring the new technology, then improved market research, industry visibility, taxation. So like that it goes. And when you say acquisition, why and why not? Why acquisition is important? Why not? What are the problem involved in that? In many cases of this acquisition, inadequate valuation target, inability to achieve synergy, financed by taking huge debt. So because on this ground, the acquisition may not be successful at all time. So this is again general information about M&A. Right, ways of mergers and the synergy, how the synergy is related acquisition, and how the acquisition is important, or what are the problems involved in that. Okay, so motives behind energy mergers. Because number one is synergy mainly. The synergy here refers value creation. So value of the new entity will be more than the combined value. Okay, so here cost synergy, revenue synergy. These are two important. Cost synergy and revenue synergy. So here I am telling you as a concept, but it has a research potential. No, it has a research potential. So whenever you listen to this kind of workshop, so first you have to understand the in-depth understanding of the concepts, and then what are the lacuna or lapses in it, or what are the issues involved in that, and how we can probe into it deeply. So when you think like that, definitely your research aptitude will be sharpened, and you may be able to take up a very ideal topic for research. The cost per transaction. I said about cost per transaction bank. As a faculty, all of us might have studied cost accounting. Now, there many times we are studying only manufacturing industry, cost of operation, cost per unit. Okay. What about service industry? You study about the cost of services industry. And applicable, though there is a mention about operating costing, operation costing, just we are studying and very textual classroom purpose only, and we are not taking into account the practical aspect of it. And now the time has come, we have to make an in-depth study about the cost ascertainment and the cost control of service industries, especially banks. So the cost per transaction in bank has come down from 40 rupees to 4 rupees and 4 rupees to 40 paise now. 40 paise per transaction. That's how it is because of volume of operation. So there in yesterday, when under a brick and mortar system of banking, when a bank undertake 100 transactions, it may involve 4,000 rupees. 4,000 rupees divided by 4,000 rupees divided by 100. What's the amount? 4,000 rupees divided by 100.
What is it?
So this year, that's what I said. Nearly when they perform 100 transactions, 4,000 rupees expenses incurred. So cost per transaction is 40 rupees. So it is some 20 years before. But now, they are spending the same 4,000, but they are taking up for the 1,000 transaction. So 4,000 divided by 1,000, 4 rupees. So 40 cost per transaction from 40, it has come down to 4 rupees. And again, still in virtual banking, cost has come to 40 paise. 40 paise. That's how it is, because of scaling of operation. This is how we could understand the scenario, changing scenario. When the volumes, when the size is only 100 transactions per day, when the size is changed to 1,000 transactions per day, what will be the changes? And when the transaction size is 10,000, what will be? Okay. When we do like that, we may be able to see the cost implication. For which again, there is a model called scenario analysis, and that scenario analysis can be very well applicable in the cost and revenue side of the organization, especially banking industry. My great appeal to all of you is try to ponder over the service sector very much, because as you all know, nearly 65% of GDP is being contributed by service industry. Again, the gamut of service industries are getting widening day by day. And when we are studying the service industry, a lot of interesting facts will come out to limelight. When it is coming out to limelight, ultimately it will be beneficial to the people at large. So the cost of services. So in hospital industry, for open heart surgery, one hospital they are charging 3 lakh rupees, another hospital charging 5 lakh rupees, in another hospital 2 lakh rupees. How? Why there is variation? Where they make variation? So for which again we have to get into. But definitely when I am raising it, many of you may counter with me, sir, how about it, sir, whether they will give data or not. Okay. That problem is there everywhere. But when we have interest and involvement and develop a passion over it, definitely we may be able to materialize our work. So cost synergy, then revenue synergy. Revenue synergy that increases the overall revenue through the expanded markets, product cross-selling, and increase in prices. So these are 3 possible ways with which revenue synergy will happen. So try to understand 2 important synergy. One is cost synergy and revenue synergy. So these are the 2 important synergical effects which a company can anticipate whenever they go for restructuring their operation in the form of M&A. And while doing win-win situation for the firms should be involved. So we have to create. It is not at the cost of other firm. One company, the strong company, should become still stronger. So the organic growth is achieved by increasing the sales, by making internal investment, and external growth can be done only by inorganic or external growth. Right. So with this, and this all the synergy is the first and foremost thing, and it leads to then the next reason important motives are rapid growth, and when I say growth, the organic growth and inorganic growth, I said, and then the market power, as I said, no market power wanted to capitalize. Okay? So thereby we will become industry leader. We will become when we are scaling up our business by means of merger and acquisition. Definitely we can do in a bigger size, and with which we will be having competitive advantage. By gaining competitive advantage, we will have power. No? So thereby market leader, we can become a market leader. Who is number one, our biggest bank in public sector bank? Which is the biggest public sector bank or largest public sector bank in India?
SBI.
Second one?
SBI.
Second largest?
PNB.
Yeah. So we will see. I will show some slides also on that, or with bank wise that are there. You can look into. So market power, unique capabilities, diversification, bootstrapping EPS, and the personal incentives for managers. So these are all the motives for the merger and tax issues, unlocking hidden values, and the international goals also. Many time, the banking industry, the companies, they wanted to have a global presence in the present contest. So to become a global presence, we have to gain edge over others. Then only global presence are possible. Okay. So I think all of you may be knowing how China is able to succeed in all their endeavors, especially on the business perspective. No, when you say manufacturing industry, especially pharma, no, even in the midst of crisis, hectic pandemic situation, no, the China are able to come out quickly, and they are making all kind of barriers, trade barriers and non-tariff barriers, and thereby Indian pharma industry is seriously affected. It is because the strong manufacturing base. Okay. And a strong manufacturing base, and they have a lot of competitive cost advantage, and with which they will be China is the country which is one of the permanent participant in the global value chain process. Value chain process. So that's how they are able to block the smaller countries, the country emerging economies. They are coming blocking smaller countries, and that's how even in the pandemics, nearly 70% of the input resources we are unable to get from other countries, from the global market, because of blocking. And that's how our pharma sector has hit very much. Okay. So why I am telling this one is being a stronger manufacturing base, China is able to gain power over other countries, and they are deciding in the global value chain process, and thereby they may be able to allow certain products or ban certain products in the global market. That's how they can dictate terms and conditions. That's how they have gained power. It is because of cost advantage. And again, when we ask our people why we are preferring Chinese product, including our mobile, no, so it is relatively lesser cost. So lesser cost, more features, and that's why we are preferring it. And once we are using it, we are tamed towards this, we are accustomed to it, and without which we can't survive. So that way, there will be they are creating a kind of a constant demand for their product by means of offering their product at a very affordable price. So when you look into that, definitely there will be to some extent some reality is there. Otherwise, they cannot withstand on vacuum for a long time. So we have to look into certain fundamentals and try to emulate. That's how even few years back, China's model, China's strategy. India is trying to follow China's strategy in order to strengthen our manufacturing base. Because there is a general teaching, learning for us. Whenever some good things are there, it is better to observe, better to learn and practice. So that is our attitude. Our Indians are being trained like that. So we have to look into the good aspect of it and try to look into the goodness in that, and we try to imbibe it. And once we are imbibing it, we may be able to practice it, and that's why we can also improve ourselves. So international presence, global presence will also make the companies to do things in a bigger size. Now, after the earlier, you may be knowing when you say SBI, State Bank of India, it has with its associates. Now all associates are merged into one called the State Bank of India. So under one umbrella, and that's how it becomes one of the top largest bank, one among the 50 largest banks in the world. State Bank after a long time, because this is our contemplation. That contemplation has been slowly materialized now. After allowing the merger, in terms of asset size, okay, our State Bank of India become one among the 50 largest bank globally. So that status or that pride make us to go for encouraging few more large banks. That's how this integration has taken place. This amalgamation, this collaboration has taken place, and merger has taken place, and that's how even the public sector bank, that 27 public sector bank become 12 public sector bank recently. Okay, and among 10 banks are becoming 4. So this is how a big mega merger is undertaking, undergone in the recent past. And again, we have to see consistently whether this merger will hold good, how long they can thrive, and what are the strengths and weaknesses in that. The ones through our research output, when we are keeping on giving right tips then and there, definitely we may be able to stick on this merger very successfully, and thereby it will serve the expected purpose. Okay. So reasons for merger, this already shown, told you, and the reasons for merger here, the future goals, mutual benefits, maximum is profit, expansion of business, economies of scale, like that it goes, and it is for when I am it is applicable for all type of industry, all type of industry, all type of companies. Okay? So the reasons for merger, the merger why and why not, and then benefits of merger, why do benefit mergers? Okay. So now let us come to, there are very different theories. Why I'm telling you, while giving some information, I have to give you knowledge as well as a research focus also. That's why I'm giving all these tips, and thereby we can go deeper and analyze it, and then tangibly come out with the workable results, and we can suggest, we can develop a model, and then make it popular, and thereby the industry will follow it. So monopoly theory, efficiency theory, valuation theory, rider theory, and empire building theory. So suppose whenever you do a research on M&A, so your work must be based on this. So for which you have to understand what are these theory, what are the aims, what are the criteria involved, how it has been worked out. Among these theory, which theory hold good now? So when you have deep understanding on this, definitely your research work will be more effective. So this is how you have to identify a topic and work on that. So meeting so this purpose. Yes. Now coming to banking industry, there is a threadbare need for the merger and acquisition, and this lead to the radical transformation, growth, and advancement of this industry. And the banking sector is facing sea transformation in the recent past, and especially public sector banks. So when they are also equally competing themselves with the other sectors of the private sector banks and foreign banks. There are 3 broad categories: private sector bank, foreign banks, and the public sector bank, apart from cooperative banks. Okay. So in that, when we say the banking industry as a whole, and all these segments have to play well. So there was significant lapses on those days. Now those lapses were identified, were overcome, and even public sector banks are also able to compete with that of the private sector bank and foreign banks. To that extent, the public sector bank has they are showing a significant development in the recent past. That too, with the advent of the technology, ICT application. The government of India has also created a technology platform for by spending huge allocation of money, around 40,000 crores, and towards which the public sector banks are also able to strengthen their functional aspect, and with which they are able to render service at par with private bank and foreign banks. And that's how the ability, the capability of the service potentials of public sector banks are being capitalized. And at times it come across as a lot of constraints and inhibitions, and such things have to be overcome, and for which this discussion will be helpful a lot. So the merger, the mega, let us go to the mega merger in banking industry. Why bank merger and consolidation, especially public sector bank? The fragmented, India is highly fragmented compared to other key economies. And again, in the public sector banks, the merger will facilitate the government to pay closer attention to the enlarged institutions. So instead of attending too many clients, now when we go for this consolidation, we can attend only few banks, and thereby the role of government in monitoring the banks will be reduced, will be less. And then number two, it will protect the financial system and depositors' money, since the enlarged institution will be more profitable and better deal with the many stressful loans, and to develop the capacity to satisfy the demand for credit and sustain economic growth. So this is how the merger and consolidation is being encouraged in the public sector bank, and thereby government as an exchequer, they would like to reduce their holding and make the banks viable on its own. That's why this consolidation has been initiated. And for procedure for consolidation, again, a lot of rules, regulation, formalities are there. So the bank consolidation procedures are provided under the Banking Regulation Act 1949, and any two discussion, they can initiate further discussion on their own, or many times the RBI, with the recommendation of RBI, Government of India will come forward to consolidate. That is also happening. So Parliament has the right to modify or reject the merger scheme, and the parliamentary approval is also necessary for the merger between the public sector bank and the private sector bank also. Cross merger also taking place. And when you say the recent merger that are taking place in the banking sector in the recent past, so here I would like to mention some recent merger from the 2019 to 2010, even 2008 also, up to that we can see. So here the recent merger, 2019 August, Indian Bank and Allahabad Bank. So name of the bank acquired is Indian Bank. Name of the bank merged into Indian Bank and Allahabad Bank. So this is one merger. And in 19 August again, the Union Bank, Andhra Bank and Corporate Bank, three banks were merged, and the Union Bank under the umbrella of Union Bank acquired bank. Then the August 3rd, 2009, again Canara Bank with the Syndicate Bank. This is another notable merger. I said about 4 mega merger, So this is a 4 mega merger. These first 4 are 4 mega merger. Canara Bank with the Syndicate Bank, and the Punjab National Bank, Oriental Bank of Commerce, and the Union Bank of India. So they are coming under the fold of Punjab National Bank. And then Bank of Baroda, this is in April 2000, little older. Okay, April 2019, Bank of Baroda with Vijaya Bank and Dina Bank. It's also a very classical case, and it has got its synergy. And here, every deal can be studied separately. Every deal, this is one deal. April 2019, Bank of Baroda, Vijaya Bank, and Dina Bank. Okay, so how that deals works out. So for which, as I said, we can choose this merger deal and apply the even study methodology and make a study and see that how synergy happens. Synergy prior to merger, what was the result, and the performance measures after synergy. Is there any significant improvement? On what aspect improvement is there? On what aspect lapses are there? And how such lapses can be overcome? How such the increase can be further can be gained further? So such thing can be done by means of adopting a deep even study methodology of case by case. So this is one classical case, and a lot of research papers are also coming up collectively as well as the deal wise also. So this is one of the Bank of Baroda. And then 2018 December, the IDFC First Bank and IDFC and Capital Fund. So like that we can go. And 2017 again, this is State Bank. So I am giving you a separate slide on State Bank also. State Bank success. State Bank of India, Bharatiya Mahila Bank, and all the 5 associates of State Bank of India also merged with the State Bank. And that way in 2017, State Bank of India will become one of the largest bank in India, and it is the first largest bank in India, and it is one among the 50 largest bank across the world. So that status has gained only after making this kind of collaboration, this kind of merger and acquisition. That's why it is also an evidence for the success of this restructuring initiative, So one of the largest initiative, okay. Then how about the survivor? That also we have to look into, and we have to keep the place continuously, and for which we have to ensure the performance of State Bank of India, and thereby it will have global presence for a longer time or forever, we can say. And then Mahindra Bank, and then our Bank of Rajasthan, like that it goes. And a successful approach to merger and integration. Okay, this is about private sector bank. Okay. Then reasons put together again 5, 6 points, 7 or 8 points are merger of weaker banks and raising market competition, economies of scale, I said, skill and talent. above all, whatever be the size of organization, ultimately human side is the matter. Okay, so human resources are the matter. So skill and talents, that also we have to update then and there, and thereby we will enjoy the fruits of the restructuring in the right perspective. Then technology and products, positive synergies, and ill-performing banks survived after merger and enhanced branch network, and a larger customer base will also happen. So these are some of the reasons for M&A. And why restructuring committees. Again, as I said, restructuring is not a current process undertaken by the Reserve Bank of India and government, and it is one of the age-old thinking taken by the happening in the banking industry since a long time. And as I said, since even nationalism onwards, it has taken place. And the Narasimham Committee has really recommended in 1998. And here he recommended three-tier banking. As I said earlier, three-tier structure in India. Really, even up 98, now around 22 years over, 23 years, still his idea, his thoughts hold good. And he has suggested a three-tier banking structure in India, establishment of three larger banks. Because all that when banks are only in the larger size means that is also that thinking is also not work out for a country like India. Okay, so three larger banks with international presence, as I said, then 8 to 10 national banks and a large number of regional and local banks. Okay, so really very fantastic suggestion given by the National Committee, which still holds good, and this is in line with that. With the slight modification, steps are being taken up, but we have to look into the reality of it and concretize our decision and try to do that, and thereby the three-tier structure will go to three larger banks with international presence. It is not necessary that all the banks should have international presence. Okay, so the 8 to 10 national presence and a large number of regional and local banks. This is also very much essential. Even during 80s and 90s, Indian banking sector has been identified as one of the robust banking system in the country, in the world. Okay, and we were able to comply with all international benchmark norms. International benchmark norms as visualized by Basel I and Basel II, Basel III, no, we have complied with 100% compliance, 100% compliance of Basel I, Basel II norms. So that's how Indian banking industry is considered as, or it was considered as one of the robust banking systems in the world, one of the robust. But in the recent past, it faces a little ebb and flow, and for which we try to correct it. We try to correct structurally on the policy aspect, on other financial aspect, everything. So thereby we are again trying to regenerate or strengthen the banking system in the country, and thereby definitely our banking system will be the robust one in the global years to come also. And the recent past only that NPA problem is started gaining momentum, and that's how it impaired the image. It impaired the image to some extent. Okay, but for which a lot of corrective measures are being taken up. And with which that mounting NPA can also come back or could be reduced, and thereby, as I said, the status of Indian banking industry will come into the robust one in the near future or very near future. Similarly, Leeladhar Committee, Nayak Committee, then Raghuram Rajan Committee. Raghuram Rajan, the former RBI governor, he has also suggested for certain norms for the merger of banks. These are all the background. Because as a faculty or as a research scholar, we should not forget the background. Okay, so then only whatever be the aim, sophisticated research topic we would like to do, so we will be stronger. So once we are growing the base. So from that perspective, I'm telling you the committee is related to merger of PSBI. Okay, so there is a word called alternative mechanism for consolidation. And what is happening in the public sector bank in the recent past is called consolidation. Okay, because it's not a deal with the exchange ratio and all. In case of private bank, two private banks, they will normally, or two private companies, when one firm is acquiring another, and automatically they have to go for an exchange ratio, and according they have to fix a price, and then while fixing the exchange ratio, one firm may incurring loss, another firm may make a gain. So this all happen. But here, in the case of public sector bank, consolidation is taking place. Okay, so Ganesh Murthy, how long I can go? Hello?
Sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can go up to 12 o'clock or how much? What's the time for me?
No, sir.
Time for interaction with the participants, sir.
Yeah. Then
May I request you to participant?
Yeah.
Any clarification? Please ask to our.
What is my time? What is my time?
11:30, sir.
Okay, then in that case, I
Up
have
to 11:30.
Okay, that's true. So in continuation of that, now I would like to tell you the mega merger deal. No? Mega merger deal in the form of so impact of this merger and all over. Okay, advantages, problems. So whenever the mergers are taking up, these kind of issues will come up, challenges will come up with respect to management perspective, employee perspective, and the pensions and all above for the employees and the process. So in order to overcome that, initially I suggested you the adoption of the McKinsey 7S framework at all times, even in the restructuring. It should be taken into account. Then only all the 7 S elements will be taken care of duly, and thereby the restructuring process will yield the expected results. Okay. Then this is what the corrective action measures, prompt corrective action measures are being taken up so as to control the NPA, and thereby the image what is being lost could be recovered, and thereby Indian banking system will be considered as a robust banking system in the days to come very shortly and quickly. Yeah. So for which a prompt corrective actions framework are also being taken up, and the government is also thinking of establishing a separate bank called Bad Bank, on which a separate talk is also there, and this is about advantage disadvantage. And here I would like to show you some interesting slides. This is some public sector banks. The 12 banks, India has a 12 bank now, and here that is being mentioned here. State Bank of India, this is one of the topmost bank, having the business 52.1 lakh crores. PNB, OBC, Oriental, the United Bank, HDFC, Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank, and Syndicate Bank, like that. So this banking size, business size as well as market share is also given. Here, the State Bank of India covers 22.5% of the market shares among all banks in India. That's why it's considered one of the biggest banks. Okay. So this is again a classical case of a merger of SBI and its associate. SBI and its associate, and that's how it becomes one of the 50 in the globe. Okay. So this 10 becomes amalgamation of 10 banks into 4 next generation public sector banks. Amalgamation of 10 banks into 4 next generation public sector bank. So here the 4 banks coming: Punjab National Bank, Canara Bank, Indian Bank of India, and the Indian Bank. Then State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, etc. is coming up. And here the business size and the PSB standing. So the second largest bank, Punjab National Bank. Okay. The 4th largest bank, Canara Bank. 5th largest bank, Union Bank of India. And the Indian Bank, so-called the Indian Bank, is coming under the 7th largest bank. 7th largest bank. And the Bank of Baroda comes as a 3rd largest bank. Okay. As it is visualized by Narasimham Committee, we need a minimum 3 largest banks which have global presence. Okay. So right now we are able to identify around 7 banks. 7 banks. 7 public banks. We have positioned 7. First rank, second rank, third rank, like that. Okay. So Indian Bank has got the 7th largest bank, and Baroda Bank is becoming the 3rd largest bank. Okay. So business size is given in lakhs, lakh of crores. And again, this is again a mega merger. Here again 4 important slides and 4 tables are also mentioned here. So this is mega merger, MM1. MM1 means mega merger. Punjab National Bank, United Bank, Oriental Bank of Commerce to be merged to form 2nd largest bank, Punjab National Bank. And here, when you say synergy, we have to look into these indicators. These are all the indicators. Okay. Hello. These are all the indicators. Total business, gross advances, deposits, CASA ratio, current account, savings account ratio. Then domestic branches, PCR. Then set to 1 ratio. Then CAR ratio, net profit, the net NPA ratio, and the number of employees. No? So these are all the various parameters based on which we may be able to find out this synergy by means of working it out before merger and after merger. Again, after merger, every quarterly we can think of, or at least once 1 year wise also we can think of, and see that whether synergy takes place or not. Okay. So here the first merger, 4 banks, Punjab National Bank, this Oriental Bank of Commerce, United Bank of India, and this is called amalgamated. All the 3 are about consolidated and together. So together. So as on the date of consolidation and the pre-consolidation, we can take 3 years, and the consolidation, and then after consolidation 3 years, like that. So thereby we may be able to make this synergical effect in the real sense. And again, as I said, we can see the short run and long run analysis also. So this is the MM1, mega merger 1. Similarly, MM2, Union Bank, Agra Bank, and Canara Bank to be merged from the 5th largest bank, And here also the same yardstick, same criteria are mentioned here, indicators. And this is amalgamated trend level status. And then immediately after amalgamation, what is happening? And later on, after 1 year, after 2 years, like that, we can make a projection. Now, it's a relatively 2 years figure we can say, we can call out and compare, that way we can do it. And the 5th largest public sector bank with a business of 14.59 lakh crores. Okay. So this merger, MM2, mega merger 2, Union Bank of India, Andhra Bank and Corporation Bank to be merged. Okay. And then third one, this is MM3, Canara Bank and Syndicate Bank to merge to form the 4th largest public sector bank. 4th largest public sector bank, Canara Bank and Syndicate Bank. All of you may be knowing Canara Bank is doing a very efficient service, and they are merging with the Syndicate Bank, and definitely the synergy will arise, which in turn makes them to become the largest bank, and they may surpass the second and third. They can get into second or third position also when they are performing well. So again, the same indicator, same thing mentioned, scale and synergy benefits. Scale and synergy benefits is mentioned here. Large cost reduction potential due to network overlaps. Then similar culture to enable smooth consolidation. Culture, that is also very much essential, that which in turn makes the people of the organization, that is employees of the organization, to get compatibility. So compatibility can be gained only with the help of culture. So large cost reduction potential and a large similar culture and the cost saving and income opportunities for the joint ventures and subsidiaries. So these are all the 3 areas of scale and synergy for this MM3. Similarly for MM2, here business to become twice and large cost reduction potential and the cost saving and income opportunity. So similarly for everything, synergy can be identified. Synergy can be identified. Here scale and synergy benefits through. So this is expected. How it is realized? How much we have realized? That we have to make a study. So for which we have to undertake a full-fledged research, either deal-wise, as I said, or else public sector bank as a whole, and then public sector bank as well as private sector bank mergers. So like that we can make a comparative study. So this is MM1, MM2, MM3, and MM mega merger 4. Indian Bank and Allahabad Bank. Indian Bank and Allahabad Bank to be merged to form 7th largest public sector bank. Here, doubling of business size, that is their scale and synergy. And a major scaling up of reach due to complementary networks. And a high CASA and a lending capacity in consolidated banks. So this is the area on which they can have a synergy benefits. They are aiming for it, they work towards it, and that way they will be able to succeed in their alliance. So this is the MM4. Okay. And the scale and synergy benefits here for all the 4 banks. The scale, this is the first MM1, MM2, MM3, MM4. So MM1, mega merger 1, Punjab National Bank, United Bank and Oriental Bank, merged entity, the second largest, and the total business size, then will ensure high CASA and the lending capacity, result in larger cost reduction due to network, and it will always create income opportunities for joint ventures and associates like that. So the scale and synergy alone has been extracted and put it captured here and put it here. So we have to at least test this projection in the form of research, and that way we'll be able to find out whether the deal is workable or not. Okay. And then what is the significance of previous merger? And again here there is some data is mentioned for all these banks, 10 banks, the public sector banks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 public sector banks. Their data, advanced data, gross. This is how variables we can, data variable we can take. There are advances, gross NPA, net NPA we can take from the merging bank, and see over a period of. So this is enterprise value, EV. EV is another data variable. Book value is another data variable. Market capitalization is another variable we can take. And then deposits, deposit CAR ratio, and here deposit and loans CAR ratio. And then net profit, CASA deposit. These are all variables I mentioned, banks. So year-wise, here 3 years are taken. So the 2020 March data also we can think of, we can take. And the 21 March, we have to again check whether the data is available or not. Thereby we can make a comparative study easily. So these are all the variables. That's why I would like to show you to how to identify the synergy with accounting variables. Advances, gross NPA, net NPA, enterprise value, book value, market capitalization. These are all mostly all are financial variables. Deposit CAR ratio, deposits, loan CAR ratio, and all. And then net profit CASA ratio. Then ROI, return on assets, and ROE. This is also another variable we can apply and find out. Check the significance synergy of the deal. And then what the government has to take, how the steps, what is furthermore we have to take on that. the infrastructure should be maintained. And okay. Then again, these variables can be listed like this also. EPS, NPM, net profit margin, OPM, ROA, ROE, CDR, BER. This is a price to book value ratio, market price to book value ratio. Then EV, enterprise value. Then BEPS and DPS. So these are all the variables which can be taken for the pre-period and post-period and compare. This is how we can capture synergy. Okay. So I think this is enough for giving light. And again, in relation to that capital restructuring, the recapitalization is also already taking place by Government of India under the scheme of Indra Dhanush 2.1. And we can have an in-depth understanding on that and try to apply it, which in turn helps a lot to encourage the restructuring activity in the public sector bank, and thereby we could strengthen the public sector bank in an effective manner. So with this, just I finish my lecture, and if there is any interaction, you can. Hello. So I throw you overall view about the.
Sir, wait.
Tell me. Hello.
Yes. Participants, please ask your queries.
Yeah, let them.
Maybe 120 participants are.
It is there in chat box or where? Huh?
No, sir. They are asking. Voice.
So I took more time because I wanted to deliver message. So that's what. No? So I even just by means of making interaction, I can prolong. But instead, I want to give you content. So that's why I shared a lot of information. And definitely, one day or other, this message will be helpful for you to write a research article, to choose a topic. Definitely, when you're keenly looking into it, you can identify hundreds of research topic on this, hundreds of research topic on the banking sector. An institution has to identify a real-time issue for the purpose of taking up research instead of repeating the same work done by others. So we have to take up the current issues, and for which understanding the basics are very much essential. That's why I give you a comprehensive view. Please. Any queries? Yeah.
Many of them put it is surplus for nice presentation, wonderful presentation, detailed presentations. The thanks from this surplus.
There?
But thanks message from the surplus. The session is wonderful. From somebody from this in call messages.
Yeah, it is coming.
But I'm requesting the participants, delegates, please ask and clarify.
At least I want to see some participants' face. Come on.
Yeah.
Come to limelight. So really, I am thankful for your patient listening.
Sir, I have a question. Basically, a lot of. Yeah.
Before that, sir, please, introduce yourself and then yours.
Okay. Lots of merger happening, and even you have mentioned that various mega mergers also, going on. Some are in the process, some are completed. But sir, I feel like customer who actually the customer of the previous bank, or you can say the one who actually demerged himself, have a lot of issues, and various transaction costs and various processing fees have suddenly increased for those customers. I'm particularly targeting about the regional banks.
Yeah.
It's actually right now coming in the picture of RBI. Now RBI was saying that you all are to be covered here because previously there are a lot of issues was going on. But somewhere the true customer is, not finding it so easy to go with those banks which have I just going through with the Canara Bank. I remember Canara Bank have individual capital adequacy ratio in very intact manner. Now, when it merged with the other bank, it's somewhere it's disbalance because the criteria of Basel III, if you can go through with that thing, they have mentioned that individual banks have this kind of thing maintained. But somewhere that merger did not result for Canara Bank in a manner which is supposed to be done as an individual bank. So, what's your viewpoint on this?
Yeah. So, Amit Kumar really is a very interesting question. And as I said, any drastic decision, any long-term course of decision, long-term decision will have its own positive and negative effect. Okay, that's why cautiously I said that I have quoted Narasimhan Paviti. No, three largest. No, it is not necessary that when the global scenario advocates to develop larger banks, immediately we should not go for a larger uplifting, making all the banks into a larger bank. No, in the case, as you said, the customer loyalty will be deprived. Okay, customer loyalty while going for this kind of long-term decision, we have to take into account all other parties' interests, that is stakeholders' interests, also very much essential. It is not deciding enough within the four wall in the AC room. So we have to, the customer perspective is very much, as I said, I am totally endorsing with you. By means of becoming bigger, at all times, we cannot be stronger. Okay. There is a proverb in Tamil, no? Yanakum adiserikum சொல்லுவாங்க. Yanakum adiserikum. When the biggest bank get a setback, it will give you a severe blow. It will give you a severe blow. That is also there. So, as an academician, I am neutral. I am not supporting or denying. And when the proposal is good, if it really works out well from the perspective of all stakeholders, then only it has to be taken up. And as you said, when the customers are getting a lot of grievances or grudges during the course of that merger time, definitely the understanding between the two banks, merged banks, no, that will be breached, and it cannot sustain. The deal cannot sustain. Okay. So before going merger, slowly they have to create a mindset among the customers also. Okay. So there is a proposal from the Union government and RBI. So our bank is going to merge with the Allahabad Bank. Suppose Indian Bank. Suppose an Indian bank is feeling like that. So they have to give a slow orientation to the customers category also over a period of 6 months or 1 year. Similarly, employees. But what is happening in some cases, overnight merger takes place. It is not like a decision to be taken up in the midnight and implement. Because as you rightly pointed out, we have to make a persuasion among all stakeholders and make them to accept the proposal and the validity behind it. Then only this deal will work out. Okay.
So, but somewhere,
Sir, to supplement your view, I want to say that vertical growth of any organization cannot go beyond a limit. It's a limit for the height of the organization. So if it goes only in a horizontal spread, I think the society will be beneficial. Yeah. And the synergies it should have positive effect. That is the aim of the consolidation of the banks.
And again, there is another point to be quoted here. Indian banking is known for branch banking system. Okay, branch banking system. So we cannot simply compare the global players. That is the developed countries like US and some European countries very small, and they are encouraging unitary banking system, and that's why they want to become big. But now, for Indian context, branch banking is a very ideal system of banking. So in such a condition, going beyond a particular size is not at all advisable. That too, many number is also not at all workout.
So thank you, dear participants. Well, Professor P. Natarajan sir, really we all admire your energy level in talking about the synergy. Yeah. Really. May I request all the audience to unmute their mic and give a big applause to Professor P. Natarajan for an excellent speech. Thank you, dear participants.
Thank you everyone for your patient listening.
Thank you, sir.
Really, I thought of interacting with you. So this 1.5 hour session is not sufficient. Even I can go on speak another 1.5 hours with you by means of making a lot of interaction. But anyhow, I have a fulfillment that I'm sharing some information with you, and I will send you the hard copy of it, of it also to the coordinator of the program. Definitely, you can make use of it. Okay?
Definitely, sir. We will go as per your words. Now, may I request my scholar Aisha Mariam to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Oh, formal vote of thanks is also there. Okay.
Yes, sir. Most respected Professor Dr. P. Natarajan sir,
Yes.
it is immense pleasure for us to participate in this FDP program, and we learn on corporate restructuring synergy in PSPS. We had a wonderful new learnings in this session, and we have learned about what is merger and acquisition, what are the reasons for restructuring, and the types of restructuring. Thank you for your ideas and views shared to us, and the session was very interactive. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Narayan. Thank you
Okay, fine.
for spending your valuable times
Yeah, thank you so
in our
much.
department. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Ganesh Mitra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye.